As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 7 of season 13, and today we're going to be getting into something totally new. We're going to be going supernatural, and it's the first time that I've done something that is in a Spanish language. Now, obviously, I've done French before, but this is a totally different thing for me. I did speak Spanish in school, but since then, I'm not as bilingual as I'd like to think I am. But for today's show, we're going to be getting into a supernatural horror, which is, other than The Baby, something kind of new for the podcast, and very much like The Baby, starts off with, well, quite a shock. But I think we should just get into this because, well, it combines quite a lot of things. Supernatural horror, Catholic mythology, which is something that I've had a background in as well, and a lot of conspiracy around this as well, which makes it very intriguing, very mysterious. And of course, seeing those elements together is just electrifying. But I think we should just get into this because I think this is going to be an absolutely wild and insane show. I haven't seen it, but I've just watched the first episode, and so I know what's coming. Or at least I've got an idea now, and I cannot wait to share that with you. But anyway, this is 30 Coins, Season 1, Episodes 1 to 4. Episode 1, Cobwebs. Now, we start off this episode with just an old man walking into a bank. I think it's in Switzerland somewhere. And as he walks in, he takes out a gun and casually just starts shooting people on the spot. As they start to shoot back, he manages to take absolutely no damage. Eventually, he ends up being taken to the vault. He manages to break into one of the deposit boxes and finds a mysterious looking coin. It looks old, it looks ancient Rome kind of old, and I believe it's got some sort of emperor on it. He takes this silver coin and then walks back out, again taking on anyone that he can, shooting anyone that he can, and for an old man he's pretty fucking badass by the looks of him. Once he gets outside, he jumps into a car, and as he does, a man rips a necklace off him, which looks to be some sort of charm, and it ends up removing the spell that's on him, and all of a sudden this guy is gone. The second guy in the car, this mysterious priest by the looks of him, he ends up taking the coin, and, well, that's it. So we can only kind of ask ourselves what is so special about these coins. And why do they have so much power that religious people are getting involved and having people killed for them? And also with the fact that this gunman had ample protection around him when it came to whatever this mysterious pendant was, we've got to ask ourselves, what kind of supernatural shit are we dealing with here? But I imagine since it was the opening sequence, we'll pretty much find out. We then move to Spain and, well, something very odd is happening. Well, not odd at first, it's a vet and she is basically helping a cow give birth. However, at this time there is a storm going on. For some reason, she's the only one who notices that there's a door banging and goes over to it, comes back, and then next thing she's birthing this cow, or this calf. Turns out, however, the calf isn't an actual calf, it is a human baby. Now, since everyone was actually filming this particular birth, well, there's kind of a plausible explanation. At some point, they think that the baby's been switched for whatever reason. Like, people keep playing this down, and even the priest in the town and the mayor, they're all kind of just playing it down as, well, it might be something supernatural, but probably not. Why we're looking for something bad when quite clearly it's just a prank. But everyone seems to think there's a rational explanation. But the show does seem to revolve around these three people: Elena, the vet, Paco, the town mayor, and Father Miguel, who is the local priest. But instantly, because of this baby, well, the whole town starts to go a little bit stir crazy about it. The woman whose farm it was on actually tries to take the baby in, but instantly the baby is stolen from them by a boy from the town who's sort of shunned by the rest of the town. He's a little bit odd, and people think that he's going to kill the child. I mean, he says as much anyway. He takes it up onto a roof because he believes that it is the devil incarnate and wants to throw it off. The vet goes up there and she manages to speak to this guy as well as a bunch of police officers, and they get the baby back. However, this is just the start of what is going on. The kid does actually throw himself off the building and ends up injuring himself in the fall, but nobody knows why he's done it yet. As time goes on, things start to become more and more disturbing around the child, and it's, well, gets even worse later on. The vet goes out to visit this family, this local family with the baby, and, well, she sees things that don't typically happen, well, don't happen at all, unless it's something seriously wrong. When she gets there, the baby is 2 days old, but is already walking, and it's fucking big. And so when she starts to panic and goes and speaks to the mayor of the town, he kind of says, well, I think you're overblowing things a little bit, but look, we'll go and we'll see the baby, and he tricks her. She thinks that he's going to go up to the farm with her, but he's just going to take her home. Again, he doesn't want things affecting the local elections that are coming up, so he's just trying not to stir the pot right now. The next day, however, they do end up going up to the farm to go and visit this family, and this is when things have escalated even more. The adoptive mother is, well, she's obsessed with this child, and this is proven when her husband actually starts to talk about how he's worried about the baby, and she ends up stabbing him and pushing him downstairs. When Elena and Paco turn up at the farm, well, what they're greeted by is an incredibly disturbing sight. The husband, now dead, is hung up in what looks to be webs made out of knitting yarn, and it's really, really weird, like scarily odd. Everything in this is shot really well, and the eerie factor of it is just heightened even more. But the woman seems to be possessed. She ends up attacking both Paco and Elena, and when Elena runs off, she ends up meeting the police who have been called, coming the other way. However, with the police is the father as well, Father Miguel. Once they get back to the farm, well, all hell starts to break loose. They end up killing the adoptive mother, and when they go upstairs to see the baby, it seems that the baby has disappeared. All that's left behind is what looks to be a skin suit from a child. So whatever this is, it's morphed into something bigger. Paco, who had been attacked, has actually ended up going to hospital, but while he's in the ambulance, he's in there with this adoptive mother. Like I said, she's meant to be dead, but all of a sudden she starts breathing. She sits up and then the ambulance is attacked. She claims it's her son that has come to get her, and she runs off as the ambulance crashes. And we see that the child is now some sort of spider, like it's from It. It's a horrific looking thing, like a spider crossed with a scorpion, crossed with some sort of worm at the front. It's terrifying. I mean, the CGI is not great, but it's still terrifying. And so this woman runs off into the night. Elena and the priest at this point have gone to the church. And for me, as someone who has lived through parts of my life as a religious person, I can see why churches are revered as a place of safety. However, this series seems to turn that on its head straight away, because while Elena and Miguel, Father Miguel, are actually in this church, it is attacked. The old woman turns up, and so does this creature, this being, whatever this child was before. Eventually, Elena has to deal with this creature and manages to pull apart a talisman that the old woman had been carrying around. And the creature scurries off into the sewers. But we've got to start wondering what the hell this is and how much it's going to start plaguing this town. It's only a small town, and it's already incapacitated several people. But it seems that whatever it is after these coins. So Elena has ended up with one of these coins because she took it off the boy who killed himself earlier on in the episode. However, when Father Miguel finds out that she's got this coin, she starts asking him about what he knows. He doesn't want to tell her anything, but we've got to start wondering what he actually knows about the coins, but also his past. It seems that in his past, he has performed exorcisms, and the last one seemed to go terribly wrong, and we're led to believe that the person who he actually did it on ended up dying, so this is going to come back, I'm pretty sure. Now, we know he also has one of these coins in his possession, and whatever power it holds, if he holds a second one, does he get more power? Is it like an infinity stone? We're not sure yet, but we've got to start wondering and asking these questions. Episode 2, Ouija. Now, we kind of step away from the whole spider, scorpion, demon thing, and end up this time going into something even more supernatural, in the form of a Ouija board. Now, there's plenty of horror films out there, but I think this episode does just as well with the material for a Ouija board. I'm sure we all know what one of these is. It's a board for essentially talking to the spirits, and typically it's usually used by teenagers. So a group of teenagers get together and they decide that they're going to do this Ouija board and talk to the spirits. Even though now it seems that the town, even though in such a short space of time, has moved on from the whole spider incident, but many of the residents in the town actually don't want to engage with this supernatural theory. Obviously they didn't see what happened to Elena and Paco and Father Miguel, but because they didn't see it, I guess it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. They don't want to think about it either. Others, however, are becoming increasingly more frightened, and that's why these teenagers end up going off with the Ouija board and trying to contact the spirits. So while they're sat at this grave and they're playing with the Ouija board, all of a sudden the candles that they've lit around them go out, it's pitch black, and all you can hear is screaming and people apparently being groped. It's the 21st century, so the kids end up getting their phones out and lighting this gravestone that they're at. However, when they do, they realise that one of the people around them has actually gone missing. A girl called Soleil. And they have no idea what's happened to her. Her father ends up finding out that she's gone missing and starts going a bit crazy about this. He starts running around the town mostly with a gun and trying to find his daughter. The townspeople are trying to help as well, but nothing comes of it. Eventually they end up doing another sit-in for the Ouija board, and this time the girl actually comes back. But this time Elena actually attends it as well. And at the same time, Soleil comes back. When she does, however, she is changed. There's something different about her. When she's paraded through the town as being found by her father, she stops. She tells an old man that essentially he is going to die tonight. The old man clutches his chest and runs off into the local pharmacy, and we can assume that he dies there and then. She then starts to relate other people's fate in the town square, and that includes a man who is just walking with some flowers, and she basically tells her friend that this person's going to die. Her friend ends up stalking this guy, and eventually he does. He seems very healthy, but he ends up walking into the path of a reversing vehicle, and it ends up squashing him. So we can see whatever power she's got from this visitation to the other side, I can only assume, is really quite something. And it's so terrifying that it's going to end up scaring our friend as well. Now, as for Father Michael, we actually start to see more of his past come out in this show. It begins revealing pieces of his history, and we discover he wasn't always a quiet village priest. He has extensive experience dealing with exorcisms and supernatural phenomena. More importantly, powerful enemies seem to know exactly who he is. And this suggests that the horrors in the town aren't random. Someone or something may have followed him there. And this brings up an interesting point. Is Father Michael protecting the town from evil, or is the town suffering because of him? We find that the episode leaves this intentionally open, so we find out more as we go. As for the other two in this episode, Elena and Paco, we see their characters start to evolve. It seemed like in episode 1 they were kind of witnesses. They were watching everything that happened around them and reacting to it, whereas in this one they become more active participants and begin to investigate more. After the previous episode, neither of them can ignore what they've seen. They know that the supernatural is out there, and both have to help Father Miguel investigate the growing supernatural activity. And it seems like they kind of take separate roles from this. Elena starts to represent science and logic. After all, she's a vet and she deals with, she will have dealt with science and logic throughout her time at university while studying to be a vet. Father Michael ends up representing the other side of that, which is faith and experience. He's been in the trenches before, it would seem, from the clips that we've seen already, and of course he has that faith on his side because, he's a priest. And then Paco, the mayor, will end up representing what ordinary people are trying to understand when it comes to impossible events. It's one of those things where if you haven't seen it, or if you hadn't have seen it, you wouldn't believe it. And now that he has to come to terms with what he's seen and putting the pieces together. And we see them starting to mould into these roles now, especially in this second episode. Now, going back to this young girl that had actually been taken, Soleil, we see that the Ouija board session that she came out of changed her, like I said before. But now we are starting to see more and more supernatural power within the town, and this becomes more evident at the end of the episode. So she goes to visit Father Miguel, and she ends up cutting her finger off, just so the demon that's inside her can show what he can do. He ends up cutting her face open as well, basically giving her a kind of Heath Ledger type Joker smile. And we see that by the end, what she's actually searching for are these coins. Again, whatever power these coins hold, they seem to be some kind of threat towards Rome. Because at the beginning of the episode, we saw the Papal See in Rome were actually talking about what's going on in Spain. And so we've got to suggest that these coins are something big. Like I've said at the beginning of the episode, it seems that these coins are related to Judas, the 30 coins that passed his hand after he gave up Jesus. And we see this in the title card, so we know that these coins are connected to that. But whatever else they represent, they are bringing a dangerous presence into the world. And we can see whomever these demons possess end up getting some insane powers and manage to manipulate the physical world with ease. So now we've got to start understanding what these coins do and what they are. But it seems that Father Michael knows more than he's letting on. And he really needs to start opening up to Elena and Paco to help them figure out what they can do to stop whatever is coming. Episode 3, The Mirror. So by now in this show we've started to see that there is no supernatural occurrence that isn't random. They all seem to be connected to this larger conspiracy that involves these coins. Whenever something happens, it's to do with these coins, which also involves powerful religious figures and some forces that seem to be able to bend reality itself. And we see that going further in this episode. And this goes back to one of the kind of oldest tropes in, I suppose, cinema, but I suppose in real life as well. When it comes to The Mirror, which obviously is the title of the episode, we start to see something that is a little worrying. And I mean, I've thought about it before, and I don't know if you have yourself, but you'll have seen it in film before, especially in horror films, where you look in a mirror and either there is something there that shouldn't be or something that isn't there that should be. The biggest trope of that is obviously vampires, when you look into a mirror and you don't see a vampire's reflection. In this case, it seems to be mirroring a different world, as if there is something beyond the mirror. However, the mirror is reflecting roughly the room that they are in, the three main characters in this case, but with extra elements added to that room. But we'll get into that anyway. So as I said, the main object in this particular episode is this antique mirror, which all of a sudden arrives in town with no real explanation. And of course, our three main characters are going to have to go and investigate what the hell's going on with this mirror. As with most things in this town, it seems kind of ordinary, but the fact that it has come out of nowhere is going to have people worrying about what's next. And of course, straight away people start to experience disturbing visions, including, like I've said, our three main characters. They head into the room, and it's Father Miguel that doesn't really see anything at first. However, Paco and Elena start to see things straight away. They can see in the mirror that there is a door open, which actually in the room isn't open. And so when they go and open it, it looks like they are just opening and closing nothing, because the door is already open. They're doing the motion in the mirror, but the door's open, so it doesn't really matter what motion they are doing. And so Father Miguel decides to stay behind. He wants to make sure that everything is okay with this mirror, even though he doesn't really believe what's going on, which does kind of seem astounding after everything that they've been through so far. I mean, we're 3 episodes in and we've already seen possessions and spider monsters and God knows what else. But it sometimes feels like Elena and Paco have to kind of goad him into doing stuff. But in this episode, he decides to stay behind and watch the mirror. And they head out of the room, but they've set up cameras so that they can watch him watch the mirror. However, through the night, he ends up falling asleep, and all of a sudden, this visage of him appears in the mirror, like a doppelganger. When Paco and Elena go over to find out what the hell's going on and try and stop whatever's happening, they find the priest there ready to smash the mirror. However, he convinces them that he's got this, that they don't need to be there, and that he can deal with this on his own. And Elena and Paco leave. However, they've got cameras set up, like I've said, so they end up watching what goes on, but the father just starts pulling cameras. It's here that he makes a massive mistake. He starts talking to his mirrored doppelganger, and well, the mirror ends up getting smashed. Basically by a man whose name keeps coming up in these episodes, a man named Giacomo. Now, this Giacomo is the man that the priest tried to save previously during an exorcism, but didn't manage to do so. And any time that Giacomo is brought up, the priest kind of freezes. So once again, when Giacomo is brought up and actually appears as this demonic self, the priest gets distracted and he ends up getting dragged through the mirror. Where he ends up, however, is, well, he's in Rome. He ends up in the Vatican and he is surrounded by priests. In his world, however, the doppelganger takes his place. And so Paco and Elena start to believe that this is their priest, this is their Father Michael, and therefore everything is okay. But as time goes on, they start to realise that this isn't the same guy that was there earlier on. And eventually they end up going back to the mirror and realising that they can walk through it. They walk through it and they end up going to this place in Rome, what I believe is the Vatican. And they end up managing to get Father Miguel out. However, they do it using this coin that they've got, because Elena still has this coin on her. She doesn't know what it does, but for some reason it is very important. And by the end of the episode, we see that she is more likely to end up getting rid of this coin and just throwing it in a river somewhere, because it would make more sense being in the river than it would being anywhere else. Episode 4, Memories. So once again, we've got a different approach altogether in this particular episode. So in the first episodes, we've had monsters, we've had possessions, and we had a cursed object in the last episode, and now we've gone somewhere totally different. Since this episode is called Memories, it is literally taking you down memory lane. And it starts to give you the origin story of Father Miguel. And it's revealed that the battle that's been going on between good and evil for many, many years now has actually been going on a long time, like decades. And of course, the Bible, heaven, hell, it's been going on a lot longer than a couple of decades. But when it comes to Father Miguel, then it's definitely been in his life for the last few decades. But after everything that's been going on, the town is now just exhausted. Like, everything seems to be happening around Father Miguel, and nobody is happy about it. Because of all the destruction and the murder and the God knows what else, it all comes down to his presence in the town. And now the residents are sick of it and they want rid. And so Paco's wife leads a campaign to remove him from the parish. And so for the first time we see that the story has started to flip a little bit. Instead of the danger just being supernatural, now it is also, I suppose, natural. Like, everyone wants rid of this man. Doesn't matter whether it's on the supernatural side or, in fact, in normal life. And so it now seems like the town is beginning to fracture due to the fact that they are getting rid of their most pivotal person, I suppose, because it is a small town in a quite religious country like Spain, and they're getting rid of their main religious figurehead. As for Elena, we see that she starts to reach her breaking point. Her clinic has ended up being destroyed after what happened in the previous episode. Essentially, a rabid dog got loose and went after her and Paco, while Father Miguel was actually taken through the mirror. But because no one wants to believe what's going on in town, people start to think that she's crazy. And she is tired of being trapped in the town where nobody wants to believe the truth. And so she considers leaving. She's sick of the place. And at this point, you've got to think to yourself, if I was in Elena's shoes, would I want to stay in this town where no one believes that I'm trying to help and I've seen some fucking weird shit? Or would I want to get away as far as possible? And so I think that we can kind of understand where a decision comes from. After everything, the people just don't want to know. And so surely you just want to go at that point. Now, like I said, the episode is called Memories, and we get to see some of Father Miguel's time when he was training in Rome. And we discover that he wasn't exactly a traditional priest. He always questioned authority, he challenged teachings, and he believed that the way to fight evil, you had to first understand it. And this created an atmosphere for him, and he was given this moniker of having an attitude that made him an outsider within the church. But because of this knowledge, it gave him the unique qualification of being ready for the battle ahead. Now, one of the weirdest parts of this episode, and especially these flashbacks, is when we see Father Miguel and two other priests who are taken to study a man who is possessed by the devil. And this man, even though he is restrained and he is imprisoned, he seems to know a lot about these three priests, including intimate details about them, and he starts to expose some of their secrets that nobody should know. And for me, it was very unsettling when you were watching these conversations play out, because the actor was doing a great job and he was so sinister. And we see that the final boss in this, I suppose, isn't exactly just a monster. It's something intelligent, something ancient, and it's very manipulative. Now, one of the priests that actually witnessed this with Father Miguel, it would seem by the end of the episode, has actually started to turn towards the dark side. Now, we saw throughout the episode that he wants power and that he wants knowledge, but he is willing to cross boundaries to actually obtain it. And that's a major warning sign, because essentially, when you cross those boundaries, that's when you let evil in. Now, as for the coins, we actually start to learn a little bit of the origin of those coins. So, we know from the title sequence that they are from Judas Iscariot, and when he handed Jesus over to the Romans and took his 30 pieces of silver, it was silver coins. But obviously throughout this series we know that they're not a myth, they're physical items that everyone has. Or quite a lot of high-profile, highly powered people have them. Some want to destroy them, but others want to collect them. And there seems to be a hidden war that's been going on for years now, but they all seem to be part of this global conspiracy. Okay, so firstly I've got to apologise. Now this show is very, very good. However, I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I would do when I actually read the concept of the show. I'm not a big supernatural, oogity-boogity kind of person. If it's horror, I like to see things happen there and then. And I think this is just jumping from episode to episode, and obviously each concept that comes up is quite interesting, but I'm a little bit over it right now. Obviously, I've got to catch up with the next 4 episodes, and I'm hoping that they are much more compact, I think, because at the minute it's a little bit spread all over. Yes, it's just in one town, and yes, it is about 3 main characters, but I just don't feel the connection, and I think that shows in my analysis here that I'm just I feel like I'm going through the motions, so therefore I must be going through the motions. It's a good show. It's just not my type of show. I can see why it had so much value when it came out at the time. It ran for 2 seasons. I probably won't cover the second one, but for now, I feel a little bit lackluster towards my review of the last 2 episodes for the very least. I think my first 2 episodes I was a bit more into it, but these last 2 I've just struggled with. So hopefully I get back on board with it, because, well, I owe it to you guys to actually do that. But I'm not saying it's not a good show, because it is. It's a very good show. It's very well made. The acting is brilliant, and the horror aspect behind it is very chilling. It's very good. It's very well done. But I'm just missing something right now, and I can't tell what it is. But hopefully, in the next 4 episodes, I will enjoy more, and then maybe I will make a decision on season 2. But anyway, I'm done for today, so if this episode's disappointed you, I apologise again, but I hope it hasn't. But as for today, I'm done, so until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.